exactly is going on. Today, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says that President Bola Tinubu's economic policies have created a hostile environment for businesses, both big and small, to thrive. He has therefore listed about 6 areas that this government needs to look at to be able to succeed. He has described the economic policies of this government as a trial and error policy. They said Nigeria is not working, and 1 year of Tinubu's is a cocktail of trial and error economic policies. Few days ago, the convener, the chair of APC Professional Forum, and the former governor of Bauchi State, Mr. Issa Yuguda, I said, look, you cannot blame this government from some of the economic challenges that the nation is facing. And the government is doing its best to stabilize the economy and get Nigeria working. Mr. Issa Yuguda joins us live here in our studio. Thanks so much, Your Excellency, for joining us tonight.
Sharon, thank you very much.
When you said that we should not blame the Bola Tinubu government, and those who will wonder, who then should we blame? He was the one who asked for the job. He got the job. The buck stopped at the stable. Why would you say we should exonerate him?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this program. In the first instance, it's not a question that he struggled to get the job. There has to be a president in the country, and he happened to be the president on May 29, 2023. And of course, like he did say when he inherited in his speech, he inherited both the assets and the liabilities of the country from his predecessor. Now, if Nigerians know what an asset is and what a liability is, at least they should be fair to Mr. President. Reference to what our former revered Vice President said about, about his comment about, trial and error. I mean, if he inherited a serious situation where he has to go by trial and error to solve the problem, what else could he have done? The situation on the ground that he inherited, called for, a sober reflection and sitting down to define the way forward. It is you like meeting a collapsed building and trying to, see how you can rescue the building and then, of course, clear the rubble and then restart all over again. So if this is the situation that President Tinubu inherited at the time he took over, and some of these figures that were before us are realistic figures. And they are not things that I said, but of course these figures came out of government. We are very much aware that our debt sustainability ratio was in the region of almost 97%. And if for any reason that every month you collect your revenue and you dedicate 97% of it to payments of debts, then you can better imagine the kind of economy you are running. Somebody who has been in the public and the private sector, I know the threshold for borrowing is normally not beyond 40%. And any situation where a country goes beyond 40%, it becomes a debt-trapped economy or a debt-trapped country. So already President Tinubu inherited a country that is debt-trapped.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like you to, just a moment, I imagine that your car that you drive, you will not give it to a mechanic that you know will mess it up. You will not give it to a mechanic that will do trial and error. If you're going to seek the attention of a medical doctor, would you go to a medical doctor that will do a trial and error?
Certainly not.
There are those who say that this president was sure that he is an expert to fixing Nigeria. He asked for the job. And that those who will disagree with you tonight, that if he says that he can get it done, after 1 year, what kind of excuses would they be able to bring now to say they're not getting it done?
Well, I'm afraid, Shewon, he couldn't have said he would do it in 1 year. because the level of damage to the system was next to impossible for any human being in Nigeria to emerge as president and say he will solve that problem that in 1 day or 2 days. Or you say, I have a cocktail of programs before me that I need to pursue with vigor, getting the best brains that can push up forward these programs, and I will get there, at least by the first quarter. This is where I will be. Second quarter, this is where I will be. And so far, I would want to strongly believe that the first 1 year, at least going by the scale of what he found on the ground, he has done extremely well. I don't know if there's any other person.
What do you define well? What do you define as well?
Well,
you have a background in banking.
When I say well, he has done well given what he inherited. Now, if, for instance, he never had a single kobo in the treasury to open LCs for the country, to bring in goods into the country, what else do you say if it happens that he found his way of doing it?
Your Excellency, so do you think that the nation is at a precipice? Do you think that the president and this government had plunged this country further into the deep?
I need some time to explain the situation, Sheun, and you are deviating from the reality.
Do you know the reason why I'm asking this question, Your Excellency?
Because this is a team. This is a rescue mission. Mm-hmm. It's a rescue team.
But it doesn't look, the figures don't look that they are rescuing anything. Should I put the figures to you, sir? Let me give you the figures of what they met on the ground. When this government got into power, the food inflation was 24.82%. Food inflation today is 40.54%. Inflation rate then was 22.41%. Now it's 33.69%. At the time they got into power, foreign reserves was $35 billion. Now it is $32 billion. Exchange rate then was $1 to 461 naira. Now exchange rate is in the region of $1 to 1,500 naira. Interest rate when they got into office was 18%. Now it's 26.25%. And I can go on and on. Yes. All of these indices are in the negative, and this is just 1 year. If these indices are like this and all in the negative, in double figures, what are we going to see in the next 2-3 years?
Like I said, Sheun, these are problems that were inherited. He inherited an economy where over 33 trillion naira was printed. 33 trillion naira printing, and it's offloaded into the economy. And this money is not productive money. It's hot money circulating to pursue the dollar in the market. Not only that, the central bank, very weak, this is no longer a regulator, it's an operator, dishing out over 10 trillion. You start naming them one after the other. And for him to have been able to, confront that with the determination, and at least bringing us to where we are, we have to say kudos to him. Because any other person who would have made that situation, I don't know how it's going to.
Let's take a break.
When you are talking about interest rates, interest rates are determined by the central bank's monetary policy, guidance. So it's guided. Where maybe the monetary policy rate is X, then maybe interests are drawn from there. But the fact is that the interest rates are also a function of demand and supply of money in the money market. So if you have sufficient liquidity within the system, banks don't have to go looking for money to borrow at high cost to maintain their positions. And this is a situation where you have the bulk of the monies that are in circulations are trapped in the banks. So the monetary policy is to the effect that they needed to mop up a lot of liquidity from the system, and therefore banks have little money in their savings. And
I showed you, I was reading out some of these statistics and some of these indices that show that this government perhaps may have performed abysmally economic-wise. Perhaps, let's look at what Atiku Abubakar is saying. He's saying that this government is doing trial and error. And I'm not sure that is a good appellation for someone who thinks that he has the capacity to fix Nigeria. I'm not sure that the hopes and aspiration and the destiny of over 200 million Nigerians should be handed over in the hands of someone who will do trial and error. How can you convince Nigerians that the economy and the destiny of the millions of people are not in the hands of a trial and error governor?
Well, I'm afraid, Sheun, these are political statements that can be given different interpretations. Probably he's just trying to throw in jabs to the president. But the reality is that there is no how you can say that you are running an economy on trial and error. It's next to impossible. This is not professional. This is not ethical. And of course, what the president found on the ground is what he's trying to, it's not a question. He cannot approach it by trial and error. There are standard ways of approaching all the problems that he has confronted. Now look at, you were talking about the exchange rate. I mean, exchange rate with that, this thing. By the time he came in, like I said, look at the tons and tons and tons and tons of naira inside, trillions and trillions and trillions in circulation outside the banking.
Are they able to retrieve and retrieve some of this money?
It's not a question of retrieve. I'm just explaining to you the circumstance of the free fall of the naira. So you can see that there was too much naira, and the foreign exchange markets were completely dry. So which explains, of course, and you don't expect the central bank always to come and bring in dollars from the central bank bulls and intervene in the market. It's normally not done that way, unless if situations are so critical, would you do that? So the monies that ordinarily should come in as free funds that will be sold into the market, unfortunately, I mean, they are no longer there. And at the same time, there is pressure. Everybody wants to take out his money outside the country. All the monies have been offloaded in Bureau de changes. After the separation accounts, governors rush to the Bureau de changes because that is what we are told.
But are the policies of this government working? There are major policy decisions,
I'm giving you an
flotation
example.
of the naira, unification of the currency. Yes. All of these things, are they working?
Of course, it should be working.
They're not.
It is working because at least the system is moving. If they were not working, we would have been standstill. Because you can't expect that when you don't have the naira on the ground, I mean the dollar, to sell, and you say you will not give it, a free hand, for people to buy and sell. That is what the government tried to do. And of course, they say no any other way. They don't have it. If they had the central bank bulls are dry. That is the stark reality of the situation in the country then. The vaults are dry. So what do you sell? They don't have the dollar to sell. Do we then, the country, expect Tinubu to go and start digging somewhere and bring dollars to sell to the market? It is not possible.
There are those who ask, but Tinubu knew this. Didn't he know? He knew this when he was asking for the job.
How would he know when he has not seen the balance sheets? He said he has received the assets and the liabilities. And by the time it was before him, I mean, sadly, he wouldn't have expected that kind of thing on the ground.
Can Nigerians trust that the renewed hope agenda that has been promised
it's not a
can
question.
be attained?
Of course, why not?
How can we trust?
We see, the problem is that it looks like there is conspiracies all here and there. Because we are very much aware of the presence of IMF in the ministries of finance and also the central bank. And yet, they were watching the Minister of Finance and the Debt Management Office of Nigeria busy allowing borrowing by the ministers. The ministers are busy borrowing when we have already passed the threshold. What was the Minister of Finance doing there? So all these problems put together, Nigerians were seeing them, and nobody within the Nigerian system came out and said, hey, Minister, what you are doing, I think you are misleading the president. Stop what you are doing. Nobody spoke until when the Tinubu took over, and then the problem is there. And then we started saying, you cannot fix it. We saw the problem being created, and nobody is talking about it. And now that he has come to take over, the problems were there. And he happened to be the person to solve it.
So you are saying we should trust President Tinubu, even though things are not looking well?
They will look well, because Rome was not built in a day. That's what's this is. Sometimes a child, when he's giving birth, he start crawling before he start walking and then running. So at least solo will reach there, Mr. Shaw.
Okay, let's take a look at what your very good friend Atiku Abubakar, what he said.
Yes,
he gave 6 advices.
He is my big brother and he's my my leader.
He said this. The first advice is pause, and was directing this to the president. He's asking the president to pause and reflect and give a framework that will be needed to clearly state the reform objectives and strategies. The second advice was that this government needs to undertake a comprehensive review of the 2024 budget within the new reform framework. The third one is that it says that this government needs to undertake a comprehensive review of the social investment program to mitigate some of the impact of these policies on the most vulnerable households. The fourth one is that Tinubu must be cautioned against any attempt to further pauperize the poor by introducing new taxes or increasing tax rates. 5, provide clarity on the fuel subsidy regime, including the fiscal commitments and benefit from the fuel subsidy reform and the impact of these on the federation account. And the last one, he said, tackle security headlong. Would you disagree with any of this advice that he's given?
I am not disagreeing, but he's been part of the problem.
You mean Atiku Abubakar?
Of course, yes. All these problems were there when they were in office. And of course, what did they do?
That's over 20 years ago.
Take, for instance, power, Shewan. I'm very much aware, year in, year out, year, minister after minister, all the problems keep lingering. If they had the political will to solve the problem, couldn't they have solved it? What's the big deal about power? If they had invested $200 million in each of the states, at least they would generate 100 megawatts each in each of the states. If in 2 years they can do that, another 2 years they can do that, they will have fixed the problem. So it's not a question of, all these things are not rocket science.
But that's indictment that you're giving to the past government. You have been in past government too.
Oh yes, I was.
There are those who say, when you headed aviation, what did you solve the problem of aviation?
Absolutely, I did a lot. In fact, I did a lot. I met, an aviation industry whose laws were last, drafted in 1964. What gave back to an independent NCAA is the review of the laws that I did when I was in aviation. And we got category 1 status. That was an achievement for my own administration. In fact, all the airports that were not, functioning, we returned them to normalcy. In fact, it would take so long for us to continue enumerating my intervention. I even floated a flag carrier for Nigeria.
But it failed.
And the system failed it. They went to Ikeja to start bringing down, his offices with digger and shovel. So if you know the details, you will weep for Nigeria.
But why did we go to that route of floating another national carrier, which the city minister said that effort was a fraud?
Well, like I said, I've told all ministers that came after me that they should not waste their time on floating, a national carrier for the country, because aviation is so sophisticated to the extent that it is not easy for you to break the cartel. You have Star Alliance, you have, One World, you have a lot of, alliances worldwide. And it's an industry that is highly competitive, and the margins are very small. You
have Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airlines, Canadian Airlines. There are countries that have national carriers. Why can't Nigeria have
Ethiopian Airlines started way back in 1947.
We can start in one day, can't we?
You start in one day, but you have to get it right. We started in 1974, Nigerian Airways, along with Saudi Arabia. Saudi has 800 aircraft flying today. Nigerian Airways is moribund.
Why is it difficult for us to sustain
because of mismanagement. We are not ready to manage. We are not ready to be honest. We are only ready to be corrupt and take Nigeria's money outside and live in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, and come and continue working in Nigeria. This is the situation with Nigerians. These are the stark realities. If people who want to swallow the bitter pill and listen to what some of us are saying, because at least we have some experience in government, the earlier, the better. But as long as we continue this way, you give somebody an assignment as a CEO, and he goes there and collapses that this thing and say there is fraud here, there is fraud here. Nothing happens to him.
So this is a warning to sitting Minister Keyamo that we should not dare to
They
go
should not waste their time
on national
career. Because for you to take taxpayers' money, Virgin Nigeria was floated without one single kobo of government money. Richard Branson, the co-investor, brought in 51%. The remaining balance was sourced from the through private placement, Nigerian capital market. And the offer was oversubscribed with over 7 billion naira there. The airline went on. Nigeria didn't spend a kobo in setting up that airline. People are just... So you can see that when he came and he started, in fact, in 7 years, he gave, it was an agreement, in 7 years, he will put 80 aircraft flying in Nigeria. And Lagos was the hub and spoke, airport. Because all air, just like you have a Heathrow, all African passengers will be brought into Lagos. And they spoke out to Ghana, Sierra Leone, Central Africa, and so on. The arrangement was just fantastic. And this same Richard Branson had Virgin America, Virgin India, Virgin Australia. All these things are perfectly working.
But when it came to Nigeria...
It came to Nigeria, they started sabotaging him.
Jim Ibrahim took it over, part of that when...
Whatever it is, it's all part of the sabotage. As if we don't know, because that airline today would have created more than 2 million jobs for Nigerians. But we don't want it to work. Nobody wants it to work. So these are some of the things that when people are advised, they don't listen. As a minister, I told you, don't bother yourself. Say, no, I'm going to do it. I said, don't take government money and say you want to float an airline. Yes, you can float a flag carrier, but the nation does not need to own an aircraft.
You wanted to react to some of what Mr. Atiku is advising President Bola Tinubu and some of those that I'm showing our viewers. It says, pause and reflect. A framework is needed with clearly stated reform objectives and strategies. Undertake a comprehensive review of the 2024 budget within the new reform framework. He also said, undertake a comprehensive review of the social investment program. He said, Tinubu must be cautioned against any attempt to further pauperize the poor by introducing new taxes or increasing tax rates. He also added that provide clarity on the fuel subsidy regime, and on the sixth one, tackle security headlong. Yes. Do you agree with him on all of this advice?
Well, I think it's not a question of agreeing. I would want to strongly believe that these are some of the things that the president, Mr. President, that is President Tinubu, is working on. And I would not want to believe that the Tinubu that we know will not monitor and evaluate assignments he gives to people. And thirdly, I believe the budget is an instrument that I believe should be a matter of concern. And all other things being mentioned there, I think they are all issues in government. And there is no reason why he should not be monitoring and evaluating it at appropriate time, and then making sure that things are going right. So it's not a new thing that our former vice president has said. It's something that is normal in government. You are always reviewing and evaluating and looking at your performance. And of course, if you have a budget that you don't seem to, be comfortable with, at least the budget office, under normal circumstances, you have to ask them to review and make sure that they monitor and evaluate the performance of the budget. And the president presently has so many, structures in government that are responsible for those activities. So all this advice our former president gave the president, they are just normal things. They are things that the president is already doing. And it's part of it. For him to be successful, he has to be doing this thing. Like the social investment program. It's a program that is already on, and it was inherited. And it is expected that at least he will also monitor and evaluate the performance, whether it is effective or not, whether it's really touching the lives of the poor, and so on and so forth. In the same manner, the budget, like say for instance, there are areas where maybe the National Assembly are tinkering with the budget. And probably that is where Mr. President can come in and see how he can redress those interventions which ordinarily would distort the system. So these advices are very good advices, but like I'm saying, he has already advised himself on these advices. That I'm aware of, because I've been talking to some of his officials. So it's not something new.
But does he have the right persons to get the job done? That's another thing. Because he cannot do the job alone.
We have always known Tinubu when, as governor of Lagos, having the capacity to put square pegs in square holes. And he is good in headhunting when it comes to, personnel recruitment or manpower resource recruitment. I cannot see him getting it wrong because there are so many intelligent, well-experienced Nigerians.
But do you think that this cabinet is the best that Nigerian could afford?
Well, you cannot have it 100% sure, because even as a governor, when I was a governor, I had commissioners. And of course, it depends on, sometimes political exigencies makes you accommodate some...
against the interests of the nation. When you start as ministers, are these the quality of persons that start with you in cabinet? There are people that have credited Obasanjo,
there are times
credited
when...
Yaradua, credited Jonathan for the caliber and the quality of persons they had in their cabinet.
I agree with you, but like I said, sometimes mistakes are made, because some of the ministers certainly are a mistake. Somehow, political exigencies overrode, the real objectives of recruiting the right person. So, and I believe we are just starting. So I believe as we move, Obasanjo in his first time, he had about 66 ministers. And he's come in and go out. If you are not performing, he kicks you out. 66 ministers. And by the time we were to return, only 4 of us made the second term. I was one of them. So you can see that Obasanjo has a wonderful way of, evaluating and monitoring his own, because he will give you objectives. But let me tell you one thing about this issue of all this noise people are making about Mr. President not getting focus. I give you an example of my experience in aviation. There was a time when, is it Bellevue Airlines or, I think it was Bellevue Airlines. It took off from Abuja to Lagos, and full capacity. And you'll expect that the aircraft is perfect, but sadly the aircraft was not perfect. I always remember the name of the captain. Was it Oyodele or somebody?
We are due to go.
So that it is important for people to know. He was the captain. The president is the captain. And by the time he went to Lagos, the nose gear could not come out, so he couldn't land the aircraft. And what did he do? He had to use his senses. It's a problem he inherited. But he has to save these people. So he had to pilot the aircraft around the Atlantic, shed all the fuel, then gave distress call to the airport, for the airport authorities, and they planned for his crash landing. And he did landed that aircraft with nobody scratching. So
we hope that President Tinubu will land these aircraft called Nigeria safely and well. Thank you so much, Mr. Yuguda.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much for inviting me.